عقيل، تكلمنا عن ماذا اللقاء الماضي؟
تكلمنا عن أحكام شعبان
كلها انتهينا منها. انتهينا من مثلا ليلة النصف من شعبان
أي نعم أخذناه
وليلة 27 شعبان،
ليلة 27
الذي يسمونه شبي برد.
شبي برد. أظن لم نأخذ شبي برد.
طيب.
نعم.
طيب نتكلم اليوم إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله.
بسم الله.
Okay, Bismillah, we're live.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, the beneficent, we praise Allah and we send peace and salutations upon the Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions to the day of resurrection. We warmly welcome you, listeners and watchers, on YouTube for another week of lectures with our esteemed Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Maliki. And today is going to be another lesson in which he will discuss, by the will of Allah, some matters, some completing matters as relates to the month of Sha'ban, and we'll see where the Sheikh goes with that. And we ask Allah the Most High to open up for our Sheikh, and we ask him to enable us to benefit from his words. فليتفضلوا مشكورا.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، في هذا اللقاء ونحن على بعد من ليلة النصف من شعبان بحوالي الأسبوع، يعني الأسبوع المقبل سيكون ليلة النصف من شعبان. وفي شعبان سنن ومحدثات، ونريد أن نبين السنن، وقد بيناها تكلمنا عنها الأسبوع الماضي، لكن نبينها باختصار، ثم نتكلم على المحدثات وكيفية التعامل معها. نعم.
Indeed, all praises are due to Allah, and may the most complete and perfect salutations be upon the Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and upon his pure wives and those who follow them to the day of resurrection. To proceed, in today's lecture, we will talk about some completing matters from last week's lecture, seeing that we are about a week away from the halfway point of Sha'ban, the Islamic month that we're currently in. And we will explain some of and go over and revise some of the optional acts of worship and the sunan, the example acts of worship during this month, and also those innovated acts that the people commit during this month.
نعم. قلت كنا في اللقاء الماضي، في الأسبوع الماضي، تحدثنا عن بعض السنن التي تكون في شعبان، ومنها صيام أكثره لمن شاء، وتكلمنا عن حكم صيام ما بعد النصف من شعبان، وأنه من لم يكن ابتدأ الصوم قبل النصف فلا يحق له أن ينشئ صوما بعد النصف. وأيضا تكلمنا عن صوم يوم الشك، وقلنا بأنه اليوم الذي يلي يوم 29 من شعبان إذا وقع في السماء غمام كثيف أو غبار شديد يحجب الرؤية فلا يمكن أن يرى هلال رمضان معه، فإن اليوم التالي 29 من شعبان يحرم صومه نفلا وفرضا، لأنه لا يعلم إن كان من شعبان فيصام نفلا أو كان من رمضان فيصام فرضا. والصوم عمل تعبدي يفتقر إلى النية، والنية سابقة للعمل الواجب خاصة، فلذلك لا يصام ذلك اليوم. نعم.
Yes, and we took some of the rulings as relates to the month of Sha'ban, and we mentioned that Sha'ban is a month in which the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, would fast much in. So it's a month that more fasting is recommended. However, once the month reaches its midway point, the halfway point of Sha'ban, then whoever has not started fasting or hasn't fasted, or it isn't their custom to fast, then it's not legislated for them to begin fasting after the halfway point of Sha'ban. We also explained the idea and the rulings of the day of doubt, or the night of doubt. And the night of doubt is the 29th night of Sha'ban, when the people go and they look to see for the new moon, but there is fog, or there is mist, or there is dust obscuring the view. So the people cannot see whether the new moon has actually come out and risen or not. So that's why it's called the day of doubt, because the people aren't sure whether the following day is the first day of Ramadan, or if it's the last day of Sha'ban. So to fast on this day when we're in this state and we do not know, this is something that is not permissible. It's haram. It's not permissible to fast it with the intention of an optional fast, and it's not permissible to fast it with the intention of an obligatory fast that, in case it's Ramadan, I'm going to fast. Rather, it's not. And the reason behind this is because fasting, it's something that we do as an act of worship. And acts of worship, they need and they necessitate a fixed intention, or a considered intention. And in this case, the person, they do not have this type of intention. So it's a day, or they don't have a deemed or reckoned intention. So the fasting on this day is not permitted, and it's not countable.
وأيضا مما يتعلق بشهر شعبان هو ما ورد في ليلة النصف من شعبان من أحاديث وكلام لأهل العلم. فقد ورد أحاديث، لكن عامة هذه الأحاديث ضعفها أهل العلم كما سنبين الآن.
And there are also a number of narrations that are reported that tell us about the virtues of the month of Sha'ban, and specifically the virtues of the halfway point, or the 15th of Sha'ban. And these are narrations that the majority and the generality of the people of knowledge, they consider them to be weak narrations, and we'll discuss them now.
أول هذه الأحاديث ما ورد من في بعض الأحاديث أن الله يطلع إلى خلقه ليلة النصف من شعبان فيغفر لجميع خلقه إلا مشرك أو مشاحن.
So the first of these narrations is the narration where it says that Allah looks to his creation on the 15th of Sha'ban, and he forgives all of them except for a polytheist, or someone who has enmity or has an issue with someone else.
وهذا الحديث على فرض صحته عند بعض أهل العلم كما صححه ابن حبان وغيره، على فرض صحته فليس فيه دلالة على أي عمل يقوم به المسلم إلا أنه يعفو ويغفر لإخوانه المسلمين. ليس فيه قيام لليل ولا تصدق ولا قراءة قرآن خاصة بتلك الليلة، وإنما يتعامل مع تلك الليلة كما تعامل مع الليالي قبلها، أن تكون ليلة عادية. نعم.
And this was a narration that even though some of the people of knowledge have deemed it to be acceptable, like Ibn Hibban, it does not indicate, and even if we say that it's authentic, it does not indicate or specify any action that should be done by the believer, other than that they should forgive their brother or sister Muslim if they have an issue with them. So within this narration, there is no indication of the additional virtues of standing the night in prayer on this night specifically, or giving in charity on this night, or recitation of the Quran during this night. Rather, this night it doesn't have any special characteristics or distinguishing features that make it different from the night that preceded it.
وقد تكلم العلماء على ما ورد من أحاديث في هذه الليلة وفي غيرها من الليالي. فقال شيخ المالكية أبو الخطاب الكلبي الأسدي في كتابه ما صح واستبان في فضائل شهر شعبان في الصحيفة 43، قال أهل التعديل والتجريح، يعني علماء الحديث: وليس في حديث ليلة النصف من شعبان حديث يصح. انتهى كلامه. نعم.
And the scholar of the Maliki madhab, Abu al-Khattab al-Kalbi, this was his name, he mentions he has a book and a work relating to that which has been authentically narrated as relates to Sha'ban, and he mentions on page 43, as for the people of hadith, then they say that there isn't a single hadith or narration that's authentic about this night.
وقال الإمام القاضي أبو بكر بن العربي المالكي: وبالمناسبة عندنا رجلان بهذا الاسم، ابن العربي وابن عربي. أما ابن العربي المعرف بأل فهو مالكي المذهب، وهو من علماء الأندلس والمغرب العربي، وهو سني من أئمة أهل السنة والجماعة. وأما النكرة ابن عربي فهو نكرة كاسمه، وهو إمام من أئمة الإلحاد، وهو من القائلين بالحلول والاتحاد. وقد مر يوما بجيفة كلب فنظر إليه ثم قال لمريديه: هذا ربنا، عياذا بالله. وقال: ما الله إلا أنا وما أنا إلا الله، عياذا بالله. فأردت التنبيه على هذا حتى لا يغتر. الذي نتكلم ننقل عنه الآن هو المعرف بأل ابن العربي المالكي، وقال في كتابه أحكام القرآن، قال: وليس في ليلة النصف من شعبان حديث يعول عليه، لا في فضلها ولا في نسخ الآجال فيها، فلا تلتفتوا إليها. انتهى كلامه رحمه الله.
And the Maliki scholar Ibn al-Arabi, and here we should pay attention that this is Ibn al-Arabi, so it has the al within his name, because there are two with a very, very similar name. The first is the scholar that we have mentioned, Ibn al-Arabi, who is from the Maliki madhab, and he is, or the Maliki school of thought, and he is from the scholars of Andalusia, and from the scholars of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the people of the Sunnah. And on the other side, there is Ibn Arabi. And Ibn Arabi, it doesn't have the al. It's not Ibn al-Arabi, it's Ibn Arabi. And he is someone different. He is, as his name is in the indefinite form. The Sheikh said he himself is like his name, he's indefinite. He is from the scholars of apostasy, and from his views of apostasy was that everything was Allah, and also that everything in existence is Allah the Most High, to the point where he was with one of his followers, and he saw a dog, and he said about this dog this dog is nothing but our Lord, and we seek refuge with Allah from what he said. And he also said, our Lord is, what is our Lord except for me? And my, meaning that his Lord was within him, and refuge is to be sought with Allah the Most High. So when we talk about these scholars, and when we talk about Ibn al-Arabi, the Maliki scholar, we shouldn't confuse these two individuals. So Ibn al-Arabi, he mentions in his book, he has a book about the rulings of the Quran. He mentions that there is no hadith, there is no narration that we can look to and rely upon that talk about the virtues of this night. And when he says there is no hadith, he means there is no hadith, no narration that's authentic that we can relate to, that indicate the virtues of this night, nor that indicate the writing of people's lifespans on this night.
نعم. وقال الحافظ ابن رجب البغدادي الحنبلي في كتابه لطائف المعارف في الصحيفة 136 قال وفي فضل ليلة النصف من شعبان أحاديث أخر متعددة وقد اختلف فيها فضعفها الأكثرون وصحح ابن حبان بعضها وخرجه في صحيحه انتهى كلامه رحمه الله.
And the scholar Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, who was from Baghdad, he mentioned in a book of his that deals with the good or the seasonal events within, or the seasonal calendar within al-Islam. He said in this book on page 136, he said, as relates to the virtues of Sha'ban, then there are a number of ahadith, there are a number of narrations that have been related citing it. However, most of the scholars have deemed them to be inauthentic and not acceptable, except for Ibn Hibban, who was one of the scholars who authenticated some of them.
وقال العلامة ابن باز رحمه الله تعالى في كتابه التحذير من البدع الصحيفة 29 عن ليلة النصف من شعبان قال وقد ورد في فضلها أحاديث ضعيفة لا يجوز الاعتماد عليها انتهى كلامه رحمه الله.
And the scholar Sheikh Ibn Baz, may Allah have mercy upon him, he mentioned in his book a warning against innovation on page 29. He mentions there have been mentioned and reported a number of narrations relating to the virtues of the 15th of Sha'ban, but they are inauthentic, they are weak, and it's not permissible to use them or to depend on them as authentic evidences.
وقال الشيخ العلامة باقي؟
تفضلوا شيخنا.
نعم. قال الشيخ العلامة ابن عثيمين رحمه الله تعالى كما في لقاء الباب المفتوح قال الصحيح أن جميع ما ورد في فضل ليلة النصف من شعبان ضعيف لا تقوم به حجة ومنها أشياء موضوعة انتهى كلامه رحمه الله.
And the Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, may Allah have mercy upon him, he mentions in the open door meetings, he mentions that all of those narrations that have been related and reported about the 15th of Sha'ban, all of them are inauthentic and are unacceptable as evidences. Rather, some of these narrations are even fabricated, meaning that they've been made up.
وهكذا قال أيضا الشيخ العلامة صالح بن فوزان الفوزان قال لما سئل هل الأحاديث الواردة في فضل ليلة النصف من شعبان صحيحة فأجاب بقوله لا ما هي صحيحة ما صح في ليلة النصف من شعبان ولا في يوم النصف من شعبان شيء انتهى كلامه رحمه الله.
And when the scholar, the Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan, may Allah preserve him, when he was asked about the narrations that are reported about the 15th of Sha'ban, he said no, they are not authentic. There are no authentic hadith or no authentic narrations related to the 15th of Sha'ban.
والذي صح في النصف من شعبان هو قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم: إذا انتصف شعبان فلا تصوموا. فهذا يدل على أن من لم يكن سبق له الصوم قبل النصف فلا يجوز له أن يصوم، أو فلا يستحب له أن يصوم بعد النصف. وذهب بعض أهل العلم للتحريم لأن النهي يقتضي التحريم. فهذا الذي ثبت، ولا يجوز تخصيص ذلك اليوم بالصيام ولا تلك الليلة بقيام ولا اجتماع ولا قراءة قرآن ولا توزيع حلوى ولا لبس جديد ولا شيء، وإنما شأنها شأن بقية الليالي. نعم.
What has been authentically reported about this night is that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, when Sha'ban reaches its midpoint, then do not fast. So the meaning of this is the person who has not fasted before the 15th, they should not start to fast after the 15th. And it's not recommended that they fast. And some of the scholars, they say that in fact it's not permissible for them to fast. And this is because when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in his speech, when he prohibits something, then the fundamental meaning behind that prohibition is that it's a prohibition that indicates that it's not permissible to do it. It indicates that it's haram, that it's not permissible. So this night, meaning the 15th, it's not permissible to single it out by performing the night prayer on it, by giving sweets and halwa, the Indian type of sweets on it, nor to stand this night in prayer. Rather, this night, it's like the night that preceded it, and it's like the other nights.
أما ما ورد بخصوص يعني غفران والتجاوز عن الإخوان في ليلة النصف من شعبان، فهو أمر في سائر العام مطلوب ومتوجه. فإن الله عز وجل قد حث المسلمين على التسامح والعفو والغفران، فقال تعالى: خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين. وقال تعالى واصفا المؤمنين: والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. فهذا في سائر العام وليس يخص ليلة النصف من شعبان دون غيرها. فعلى هذا ينبغي المسلم أن يعفو دائما ويسامح إخوانه وينقي قلبه، لأن القلب محل الإيمان والإخلاص ومنبع الخشوع الذي يتدفق على جميع الجوارح في الصلاة وأثناء القراءة وفي الدعاء ونحوه من العبادات. فإن القلب المملوء بالشحناء على إخوانه لا تكاد الجوارح التابعة له تجد معنى الخشوع ولا طعمه، لأن القلب مشغول. لكن إذا درج الإنسان على أن يعفو ويغفر ويسامح، فإن جوارحه تستشعر وتستجمع وتستطعم الخشوع أثناء العبادات. نسأل الله أن يرزقنا ذلك جميعا.
Amen. As for that which has been reported about us forgiving and overseeing and making amends with those with whom we've fallen out, this is something that is recommended and it's sought after at every point of the year, and it's something that's sought after outside of the month of Sha'ban as well as inside the month of Sha'ban. And Allah has encouraged his slaves to rectify the relationships that they have with one another, where he said that which means in the verse of the Quran, and be be compassionate with one another. Be easy with one another. Pardon one another. That's the one. Pardon one another, and enjoin that which is good amongst you, and leave off of the ignorant ones. So this is something, and this kind of conduct is something that's recommended outside of the month, and it's something that is perpetual. And the reason why this is something that's important to do, this rectification, is because when an individual harbors something against someone else or against their brother or sister Muslim, it affects and it impacts their heart, and the heart becomes busy in resentment, in hate. So it becomes busy, and this busyment, or this busyment with hate, it diverts the heart from tranquility and from attaining peace in the prayer. So the individual who has this within their heart, they cannot pray in a peaceful, contented manner because their heart is busy. As for the individual who pardons and who has good relations, then their heart is clean, and they have no reason for their heart to be busy with anything. So once their heart is in this kind of condition and is in this kind of state, their feet, their hands, their limbs, they can also be at ease with their Lord.
نعم. أقول هذا بخصوص ما يتعلق بشهر شعبان، وأسأل الله عز وجل أن يجعلنا وإياكم فيه من أهل الإحسان. لكن بقي أن ننبه إلى أن السلف كانوا يعتنون جدا بشهر شعبان، حتى إنه كان يعرف عندهم بشهر القراء، يعني شهر الذين يكثرون من قراءة القرآن. بل إن بعضهم كان يغلق متجره ويتفرغ لقراءة القرآن ولا يعمل شيئا سوى العبادات وقراءة القرآن. فلذلك ينبغي علينا أن نقبل على قراءة القرآن في شعبان ونتدرب ونتعود على ذلك حتى يكون في رمضان هذا هو دأبنا وشغلنا ولا ننشغل بغير ذلك. نعم.
And I omitted to mention at the end of the last piece that the Sheikh mentioned, he made dua that Allah makes us all from those whose hearts are clean and whose hands, limbs, etc. are at ease with Allah the Most High. And he said about this, about the lecture at this point, this is what we have to put forward, and we ask Allah the Most High to make us from those who are from the people of goodness within this month. And he added that some of the early Muslims, they mentioned that the month of Sha'ban, the month of Sha'ban was the month of the reciters, meaning the people of that time and the early Muslims themselves, they used to do lots of good within this month. And what the good that they would do would be focused on the Quran and the recitation of the Quran. So some of them, they used to commit themselves to the Quran and shut off from everything else other than it. And this is something that we should do. We should take to the Quran and focus our efforts on recitation of the Quran, so that when we come into Ramadan, we'll be in a flow and we'll be used to it, and we'll be able to benefit from the Quran, and we won't divert our attentions to anything other than it.
نعم. والآن لعلنا نترك يعني الوقت أكثر للإخوة الذين يريدون أن يسألوا، لأن شهر شعبان يحتاج إلى كثير من الأسئلة. نعم.
جزاكم الله خير. And we'll stop there as relates to the lecture part of tonight's lecture, and we will open the floor with questions that from the floor that people may have. And this is because this is a subject matter that people might have some questions about. So we'll give the opportunity for that.
السلام عليكم شيخ. جزاك الله
يا عليكم
and جزاك الله Akil and the Sheikh. Just a quick question. I've got a few on my phone here. In regards to donating before Ramadan, is there any advice in regards to donating before? Because there's certain charities are asking for donations so they can spend in Ramadan on the people. So, but they want the people to, well, this individual wants to save his money to donate in Ramadan so he can get the reward for donating in Ramadan. So can you advise us with that?
Yeah. فشيخنا بارك الله فيكم. السائل يريد أن يتصدق، وهناك من الجمعيات الخيريات عندنا يطلبون الصدقة من الناس الآن لتوزيع الأغراض أو الصدقة في أثناء رمضان. فإذا تصدق الشخص الآن بهذه النية، والأموال أو الأغراض ستوزن في أثناء رمضان، هل يثيب كفاعل في رمضان، أم هل يمسك ماله حتى ندخل في رمضان ثم يتصدق؟ بارك الله فيكم.
الصدقة ليس لها وقت محدد. نعم، عمل الطاعات في الأوقات الفاضلة له فضله، لكن قد يكون الفضل أعظم في أوقات الحاجة إلى هذا العمل. فمثلا لو وجد الإنسان أذى في الطريق وبقي على رمضان، بقي على دخول رمضان نصف ساعة، يعني إلى أن تغرب الشمس آخر يوم من شعبان، هل يميط الأذى أم يقول أنتظر حتى يدخل رمضان فيكون الأجر أكثر؟ نقول لا، أمط الأذى، لأنك لو لم تمطه ربما تضرر أحد. وهكذا الصدقة، لو أنه تصدق قبل رمضان ربما الفقير أو الجمعية استعدوا لما يحتاجون فعله في رمضان من قبل دخول رمضان، فلا يفوت جزء من الشهر إلا وقد غطي بهذه الصدقات، فهذا أجرها عظيم. لكن لو أخر البذل حتى يدخل رمضان فات جزء من الوقت الذي يستغرقه هذا المسكين في أخذ المال والذهاب لشراء حاجياته والعودة، وكذلك الجمعية تأخذ وقتا حتى تفعل ذلك. لذلك من الأفضل أن يتبرع قبل رمضان لأعمال تقوم في رمضان، بل حتى التبرع قبل رمضان لأعمال يتعين فعلها قبل رمضان، هذا من الأمور العظيمة جدا وأجره عظيم، وتأخيره إلى رمضان قد لا يجعله أفضل أجرا من فعله في وقته، لأن الله عز وجل علمنا في القرآن أن الأعمال مرتبطة بأوقاتها، ولهذا قال إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا، وقال في الزكاة وآتوا حقه يوم حصاده، وقال في الحج أشهر معلومات، وقال في الصيام فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه. إذن هي أعمال مرتبطة بأوقات لا يصح أن نؤخر، هذا كله تدريب لنا أن نعطي العمل في وقته الذي يكون أنفع لذلك العمل. أما تأخيره من أجل أن يكون في زمن فاضل فنحصل على أجر أكثر، لا. لكن إن وافق ولقيت في رمضان محتاج أو مسكين أو قدمت إفطارا لصائمين، نعم هذا أجر عظيم، هذا أجر عظيم، لكن لا تؤخره، لأن تأخيرك سيجعل بعض الناس غير قادرين على الحصول على هذه المعونات بعض الوقت في رمضان. نعم، والله أعلم.
جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك فيكم شيخنا. So in response to this question, our Sheikh said, may Allah preserve him, that sadaqah or charity in and of itself, it does not have a specific time that's allocated to it. Yes, there are times that are more virtuous and better than other times, but sadaqah, it does not have a prescribed time. However, when someone gives, the principle is that when they give or when there is a greatest need for something to be given, then the reward is greater. Yes. So the Sheikh then gave an example and he said, in answering the question, should I delay giving charity until Ramadan comes or should I give it now? The Sheikh said that if an individual were to be walking down the street and they find something that harms the people on the footpath, and it's the last day of Sha'ban and there's half an hour to go to Ramadan, should they remove the thing from the street, from the path and the pavement, or should they say, let me wait for half an hour so that my reward will be greater during Ramadan? And of course, to remove the harmful thing from the pavement, this is what one should do. This is because even during that half hour, someone could hurt themselves or harm themselves from the obstruction. So this is similar to the case of giving the charity, that we would not delay it. So it could be, as has been alluded to in the question, that the charity they take before Ramadan so that they can give and grant and give to the people during Ramadan. And if this is the case, then the rewards for helping and donating in this situation or in this case is great. There is great reward in doing so. If the individual, however, if they delay in giving their charity, and many people delay in giving their charity until Ramadan starts, it may be that the charity, due to these delays and due to the lag in giving, it may cause a lag of distribution during Ramadan, such that the destitute and the poor people, they go without during Ramadan. So delaying it, it might not necessarily be better in terms of the reward or in terms of for the individuals. And Allah the Most High, He told us, as relates to us performing actions and performing righteous actions, He told us that there are specific times that we should do so. He mentioned the Most High that prayer is prescribed upon you at fixed appointed times. He mentioned that zakah, the giving of charity, it's after a year, that Hajj, the pilgrimage, it's at known times, etc. So this shows us that we should give things and we should come with acts of worship when their due time is for them to be given. However, yes, at the time it's best to do. To delay something to a more virtuous time, then the answer to this is no, because the delay, it might have some impact, as we've mentioned, so we should give. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك فيكم شيخنا.
وإياكم.
Excuse me. There's another question here in regards to Ramadan. I think we answered it last week, but they may not have heard it, or they may not have got the message in regards to praying at home and praying in the masjid because of the lockdown. There's some masjids that will be open, and we have been encouraged to attend the masjids, but because of the lockdown, we may be breaking the law in doing so. So how do you advise us to go to the masjid and get the reward where we may be breaking the law, or not go? But I think it's a similar question, but yeah.
That's not true though, is it, Abdul Hakim? It's not against the law to go, is it? It's not.
If the law says that you're not allowed to come together as a group of people, I think they say 6, 1 from each household, but obviously a masjid is, if it's going to be more than that, then obviously that's going to be going against what the law says, isn't it?
Yeah, but at the moment the law says that places of worship are exempt, but there's local Jummah is happening, and 5 daily prayers is happening at the masajid.
So is that against the law then?
No, I don't think so.
Not
No, I
exempt.
think
So that means that it's permissible that the law is allowing it to go to the people to go to the masjid. Then is that
yeah,
congregate?
Yeah, that's it is. It's allowing them.
It's exempt. So that means Taraweeh should be legally should be all right then. That's more or less what the law is saying.
Yeah, that's what the law's saying. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if it's the law, if it's allowed, then fine. Then we just Islamic.
I mean, the reason I'm happy to ask it, but if we ask the sheikh and we mention to the sheikh that it's against the law, I mean that will have an impact upon the answer.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it is against the law. I'm pretty sure it isn't.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure myself, to be honest with you. I just thought that if a group of people go into a room, I thought you're like restricted. But if they said that the mosques and the churches are exempt, then you know it is what it is. But
I mean, they currently are. It might be.
Worship have been exempt. Throughout this lockdown, I think.
The places of worship have been exempt from the usual law. Then, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom.
Okay, then that's good. And then Taraweeh, then that should be permissible to go. Then, I mean, according to the law.
But the sheikh might have some advice generally about going.
Okay, then carry on.
Maybe if I ask that.
Yeah, Bismillah, carry on.
شيخنا أكرمكم الله وبارك فيكم.
وفيكم بارك.
كان بيننا بعض المناقشة في السؤال لأن السائل ولعلكم فهمتم السائل ذكر أنه كيف أقول لا يجوز هنا الآن الخروج إلى المساجد. الحكومة حكوا هذا لكن هذا غير صحيح. الحكومة سمحت الحضور في المساجد. لكن مع هذا شيخنا هل لديكم ولعلكم ذكرتم بعض الأمور الأسبوع الماضي هل لديكم أي نصيحة عامة في هذا الوقت في هذا الوقت في وقت الوباء والكورونا والمساجد والحضور في التراويح؟
نعم. أما بالنسبة لصلاة التراويح بذاتها فهي سواء كان في زمن الوباء أو بغيره هي سنة من السنن وليست واجبة، ولو أداها الإنسان في بيته أجزأه ذلك، لأن هناك فضل زائد في أدائها في المسجد وهو أجر قيام ليلة، كما جاء في الحديث عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال من قام خلف إمامه حتى ينصرف كتب له قيام ليلة. لكن بعض الناس قد يأتي إلى المسجد بل حتى يأتون إلى الحرمين ثم لا يصلون الصلاة تامة ويخرجون قبل انتهاء الصلاة ويظنون أن هذا يكفل لهم أجر قيام ليلة كاملة كما في الحديث، وهذا خطأ. المهم أن الإنسان إذا أراد أن يصلي في المسجد في هذا الزمن، في زمن الوباء المنتشر الآن المسمى بكورونا أو كوفيد 19، إذا كان من كبير سن أو عنده ضعف في المناعة بسبب أمراض مزمنة ويخشى عليه من يعني أن يأخذ هذا الوباء ولم يكن أخذ اللقاح ضد الوباء، فلا ننصحه أن يذهب للصلاة هناك بل يصلي في بيته. وقد جاء في الحديث أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما قدم من تبوك وقبل أن يدخل المدينة قال للصحابة إن بالمدينة أقواما ما سرتم مسيرا ولا قطعتم واديا إلا شركوكم الأجر ما منعهم إلا العذر. فهذا في شأن الجهاد، جهاد أجره عظيم، ومع ذلك ما حضروا معهم، ما ذهبوا. وتبوك كانت من أصعب الغزوات لبعد المسافة وشدة الحر ووعورة الطريق، فكانت الظروف صعبة جدا. ومع ذلك النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول للصحابة الذين بقوا في المدينة ولم يأتوا معنا بسبب العذر هم مثلكم في الأجر. سبحان الله. فنحن نقول للذين يخشى عليهم، أو قد يكون شابا لكن يسكن مع والديه، فلعله يذهب إلى المسجد فيلتقي الناس ثم يرجع إلى البيت وينقل هذا الوباء لوالديه، فإن هذا كله، وهذا حصل عندنا قبل أيام عندنا حصل وأعلن هذا، أن يعني شابا رفض اللقاح الفاكسين له ولوالديه وللأسرة، وكان يخرج ويخالط، فحصل أنه حمل الفيروس، لم يصب هو بالبلاء لكن حمل الفيروس. فلما جاء إلى البيت الفيروس وجد الوالدين الكبيرين بالسن والمريضين بأمراض مزمنة ضعيفي المناعة، فتمكن منهما فماتا. فهذا يعني يعتبر جرم، هذا لا يجوز الإنسان يعني يتسبب في أذى الآخرين من أجل أن يعني يصلي. نحن عندنا فقه يجب أن نفقه العبادات ليست هوى، العبادات ليست هواية أو نفذها ولو لم يعجب الآخرين، لا. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم منع من توطن المجلس الواحد في المسجد، أن الإنسان يظل في مكان واحد أبد الدهر. منع من احتجاز حجز مكان في المسجد بوضع سجادة أو كذا، منع من ذلك من أجل المصلحة العامة والآخرين. وأيضا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم منع الرجل الذي عنده الجذام، والجذام مرض جلدي معدي لكنه بالجلد لا يميت، ومع ذلك قال له صلي في مكانك في منزلك. وحتى البيعة قال له ارجع فقد بايعناك، ما بايعه كما بايع البقية بالمصافحة. كل هذا مراعاة يعني مراعاة لحال الناس وصحة الناس، فلا ينبغي للإنسان أن يتصلب برأيه، قد يكون هناك. ثم البعض يذهب إلى المسجد وهو قوي شاب، ثم يصافح الآخرين ويقبلون بعض ويحضنون بعض لأنه رمضان، مناسبة رمضان. ويعني هذا كله من الخطأ يا إخوة، لأن هذا قد يعني تسبب في إلحاق الضرر بآخرين. أنا عم زوجتي ابنه كان يذهب يعمل في أماكن مختلفة موزع البضائع وكذا، فيقابل أشخاص كثيرين ويعود كل يوم إلى المنزل. فمرة من المرات يبدو أنه خالط من كان عنده الفيروس، فرجع إلى البيت والكل أصابه الفيروس، لكن لم يعني يتمكن إلا من الوالد لأنه كان كبير سن وضعيف المناعة، فأجلسه في العناية المركزة، العناية الفائقة، أسبوعين ثم مات بسبب الفيروس. هذا ما ينبغي يا إخوة، هذا دين وهذا فقه. يجب أن نعرف ديننا من أهل العلم، لا من كل أحد يتكلم، لا، أهل العلم. الآن عندكم شباب يقولون أنهم دعاة ويقولون للناس لا تأخذوا اللقاح. طيب نحن رأينا المفتي العام أخذه، ليس فقط قال بل أخذه، جيء به في التلفاز على الهواء مباشرة وهو يأخذ اللقاح، ثم الشيخ الفوزان أخذه، ثم علماء كثير أخذوه. وأنا غدا إن شاء الله الساعة 9:30 صباحا عندي اللقاح الأول، ومن حظي أنه يكون اللقاح البريطاني الأكسفورد. فقلت لهم أنا قدمت من قديم، كان يفترض أني آخذ الفايزر الأمريكي، لكن شاء الله عز وجل أني أؤخر، وأنا تقدمت من قديم، لكن الله أراد أني أؤخر حتى آخذ البريطاني، لأني دائما مع البريطانيين. والله أعلم.
أثابكم الله شيخنا. So in response to this question, our Sheikh, may Allah preserve him, he mentioned that the Taraweeh prayer, the night prayer during Ramadan, during periods or during the period of the pandemic and outside the period of the pandemic, in a general sense, it's a prayer that is recommended. It's a recommended prayer, and it's not a prayer that is obligatory. So if the individual were to pray this at home, then it would suffice them, and it would be acceptable. However, in the masjid, they would attain the extra and additional reward of having spent the night in prayer, because this is the narration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that whosoever prays the Taraweeh, the night prayer, with the Imam until the Imam finishes, then the whole entire night of prayer will be written for them. This highlights, actually, this hadith, it highlights the mistake that some people fall into, and that's even some of the people who fall into at the Masjid al-Haram in Medina, whereby they attend some of the night prayer in the masjid and they do not complete it because they think they have attained the reward of having prayed the whole night, but this is not true. It's important to say that when praying, or when praying, especially the Taraweeh prayer, the old people, those with underlying health conditions, and those who could be at risk or who have not taken the vaccine, they should not go to the masjid to pray. Rather, they should pray this prayer at home. And we see from the Sunnah, the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, when he returned from the Battle of Tabuk, he went to Medina and he said to his companions, indeed, this travel and this journey that you've made, you haven't walked anything and you haven't traversed any path, except for there are people who are in Medina who couldn't go due to legitimate excuses, and they shared with you in all of the reward that you have taken. So all of the reward that they took in traversing, in battling, all the hardships that they felt, and the Battle of Tabuk, it was a great, hefty, difficult battle, because it was very hot at the time, and it was a far place, etc. However, due to the legitimate excuse that the people had, they still got the reward that those who actually attended got, even though they weren't able to go and actually fight. So this is similar to the case of those who cannot go to the masjid for Taraweeh in this case. And it may be that someone goes to the masjid, and for example, they are or they themselves are able to go to the masjid because they're young and they're strong and they're healthy, but they live with their elderly parents, for example. This is a situation where they would be putting their parents at risk by going to the masjid, so they should not. And we know in actual fact that there are instances where people have gone, young people have gone, and they have picked up and they've refused the vaccine, and they have picked up the virus, and they've been asymptomatic. And then when they've got home, they live with their parents or elderly relatives or those with underlying health conditions, and they pass the virus onto them, and the virus takes full effect with these people and they die. We know this has happened. So this is something that's not permissible. We should not put people to test and put people to risk for no reason. So it's best that they pray this prayer at home. And the worship is not something that we do from our desires, just because it's something that we want to do. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he taught us that when we go to the masjid, we shouldn't take a fixed place. We shouldn't take a fixed spot and say, this is our spot that we use every time we go to the masjid. Rather, we should take different places in different spots. And this is to actualize a general benefit of the masses, because in taking that spot, you are taking it away from others who could potentially benefit from it. And the benefit should be for everyone. So Islam looks to the benefits of the people. And we've seen in the example where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he spoke to the individual who had leprosy. and leprosy is not a highly contagious disease, but he advised the man to pray at home. Also, when he took the Pledge of Allegiance, he shook the hands of everyone except the individual who had leprosy. He said, "We have taken your Pledge of Allegiance," and there was no need to shake hands. So these are all precautionary measures to bring about benefit for the people, to keep the people healthy, to keep them good and well. And it's going to be the case that when people go to the masjid, they're happy, they're seeing their brothers, it's Ramadan. And of course, we didn't have last year, the Sheikh didn't say that, that's my addition, but we didn't have last year in Taraweeh. So people are going to shake hands. They are going to touch one another and hug one another. And this is a huge mistake. And I personally know, being the Sheikh, that my wife's uncle, his son used to go out to work and he used to mix with people, and he didn't take precautionary measures when mixing with people. All of the family got the virus, but it was only the father who had underlying health conditions, and none of the family had taken the vaccine. It was only the father who was very weak and had underlying health conditions who contracted the virus, and it took full effect, and he was in intensive care for 2 weeks. And then after this, he died. May Allah have mercy upon him. So it's not fitting that we put people at risk like this. And it's also not fitting that we take our religion and we listen to anyone who talks. Rather, we take our religion from the people of knowledge. There are some students or some people that we call callers or inviters, propagators to Al-Islam, who are not scholars. And they tell the people, you should not take the vaccine because of X, Y, and Z. However, when we look, we see the scholars of Al-Islam, the Grand Mufti, for example, he took the vaccine and he took it on national television here. And Sheikh Fawzan, one of the senior scholars of Islam today, he took the vaccine as well. And tomorrow morning, by the will of Allah, I will be taking the vaccine. It will be my first shot. And it was the case that I should have been taking the vaccine a lot earlier than this, but Allah has willed it and decreed it that I take the vaccine, my first shot tomorrow, and I will be taking the Oxford vaccine and not the American one. And it may be that Allah willed this because I'm very close and I associate with the English and the British brothers. وشيخنا بارك الله فيكم إذا كان شخص مثلي شيخنا، أنا أستطيع أن أذهب إلى المسجد، لكن والدي هو كبير في السن لا يستطيع أن يذهب لأن سيكون هناك زحمة. فهل الأفضل لي أن أصلي في المسجد أو أذهب إليه وأصلي معه؟
الذي أراه أن الأفضل أن تصلي معهم. أولا لأنك لو ذهبت لا تأمن أن ترجع معك الفيروس. ثانيا إذا صليت معهم يعني عوضت عنهم شيئا مما فقدوه. قد يكون الوالد، وهذه عادة كبار السن، أنهم يواظبون على المساجد من صغرهم، ليس كحال شبابنا اليوم، يعني قليل ما يذهب المساجد. فكبار السن قلوبهم معلقة بالمساجد. فإذا صليت معه خاصة هذه السنة تكون أولا أمنت من إلحاق الضرر بهم، ثانيا تكون أيضا آنستهم بالصلاة معهم وإمامتهم وعلمتهم، ولعلك يعني تعلمهم يعني أحكام الصلاة وصفة الصلاة، ثم أيضا لعلك يعني تبين لهم بعض ما يكون في الآيات التي تقرأها، ربما من أحكام، من قصص، من مواعظ، فهذا قد يعني يكون له نفعه ووقعه، والله أعلم.
بارك الله فيكم. So I asked, what about the case, for example, if an individual can pray in the masjid, but they have elderly parents who cannot? What's better, that they go to the masjid and they pray the Taraweeh, the night prayer, or that they lead their parents in the prayer? And the Sheikh said that the best, and obviously this is all within the context of safety, and not opening, as with the previous answer, not opening the parents up to additional, additional risk of getting the virus. So the best is that you pray with them, and this is for various reasons. One of those reasons is that the older generation, especially, their hearts are connected with the masajid, with the masjids, and it's something that they find very, very dear. So if you were to lead them in the prayer and to pray with them at home, you would be giving them some of this sense, so that they wouldn't feel the loss of not being able to attend the masjid. In addition, you would be taking away any kind of risk that they may have in going to the masjid. So it's good in that sense as well. And it could be that if you lead them in the prayer, then you can also teach them something of the rulings of the prayer, or you could teach them something to do with the explanation of some of the verses of the Quran that you recite. So, for example, some of the rulings, the jurisprudence rulings, the fiqh-based rulings that you mention, or some of the stories that you recite in the Quran. So it could be that you could bring about great benefit in doing so, and Allah the Most High knows best.
طيب لعلنا نختم هنا إن شاء الله.
Inshallah. And here we will end tonight's lecture and tonight's question and answers. And as always, we thank our esteemed Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Maliki. It's quite late over there. He's given us so much of his time, and may Allah the Most High accept from him. And we thank the organizers, Abdul Hakim Wilson, and of course our interpreter Tom.
Jazakallah khair, everybody. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh and Tom and Akil. I'd just like to quickly mention that inshallah we're working on the Hour of Power, which will be every day of the week, inshallah, for Ramadan. We ask the people to support Islam for Deaf by visiting the website and seeing what we have on there also, inshallah, and also donating to help have consistency with the Islamic programs. We'll be doing a live session during Ramadan with the Hour of Power and Plus on the social media, YouTube, Facebook. We're going to be doing live programs as well, inshallah, as well as streaming the 40 Hadith by Imam Nawawi, which was done by our brother Akil. May Allah reward him, also with our interpreters as well. So yes, we have quite a few programs going on during Ramadan. So keep in touch, visit the website, inshallah, and support it. Jazakallah.
Tom, I was watching you interpreting, mashallah, you're good. See?
Thank you.
Abdul Wahid, if we are off air now, I need to just speak about something and I will translate.
Okay, let me end this then.